First, I want to say thank you for letting me take this time to meet with you, or meet with you.
Teachers, pardon this interruption. We are allowing students into class until 7:58. That's about 2.5 more minutes without a pass today because of the traffic situation. Thank you.
All right, so we'll start here. Well, thank you for taking time to meet with me, and I really appreciate your willingness to kind of agree to doing this.
Sure.
Because I know it's taken out of your time, and but I appreciate you helping me out. So I really enjoyed watching or looking at or observing your classroom. How do you feel the lesson went?
I think it went pretty good. I feel like I should have maybe done something more less teacher oriented. I felt like I talked the whole time pretty much. I think they didn't even get to their assignment until probably 10 minutes left in class, 15. So I feel like a lot of it was just me up there lecturing, and I feel like I should have made it more student oriented. Probably I would say.
Yeah. What do you think was your highlight, like your favorite thing of your lesson?
My favorite thing of my lesson. I would say just different kids answering, like kids that don't usually get involved in the lesson. Because we had talked about it before, it wasn't my first day to teach it, so just seeing some kids that, hey, they're actually starting to get it, so they're actually answering out loud in class instead of just sitting there, going along. So I think that was the highlight for me, is just some other kids besides my main 4 or 5 that always want to, jump in there, get involved in the lesson.
Well, and I think you did a great job of incorporating them because I saw there was portions. She's still standing out there. Let me see if that student needed me.
She wants a pink t-shirt.
She wants a pink t-shirt, is that what she said?
There you go.
I have to wait for a pink t-shirt. So anyway, I thought you did a fabulous job of pulling other people in, as I think in some portions of the lessons it appeared you intentionally picked people for intentional
And I kind of have to.
purposes.
It is one of those classes where I don't get a lot of involvement from the students. I don't know if it's just because it's my first class and it's early and they're still tired or what, but it's like one of my quieter classes, and so it's hard to get them to speak up.
Right.
Because if I just say, someone give me an answer, it's going to be the same kid every time.
Absolutely.
And so I have to call on people. And so I've thought about doing the popsicle sticks. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Right.
Because I know that's a good way to get them to where they're at least trying every problem, because they're held accountable to do it. So.
Well, and even if you don't take the time to, popsicle sticks is a great idea. If you don't take the time to write them all out, if you just have a roster over to the side, just randomly put your finger on different.
And I've pulled up my Skyward before and said, okay, I'm going to randomly pick someone.
Right.
And really, it's not random. I'm just calling on different kids, but just so they think, hey, I'm going to randomly.
Yeah, and I think that naturally is going to keep them engaged, and because they're going, oh, I might be next, or he's calling on me.
Right.
That sort of thing. All right, so some of the same things that you mentioned I saw as well. Do you feel like you accomplished your objectives?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like I did. And then again, it wasn't the first day that I've taught it. And
so this was a follow-up day?
It was a follow-up day, right. It was my second day.
To previous instruction? Okay. And so probably, being it was a second day, like you said, the less teacher-directed would probably be...
Right, more applicable to that.
Okay. So, I think I always like to start with one place where you shine, and I think you found it as well. And one of them is your student behavior, because I know the dynamics of the caliber of students you have in your classroom, and I've observed that classroom, that same course in years past, and I will say I was very impressed with your student behavior and how it appeared that they were all at least focused.
So that one girl in the front that
there is always sometimes the one you did try to redirect, but they at least were focused and not distracted. We'll talk a little bit later about maybe how we can further engage them, but I think classroom management, and I know that maybe it's an earlier morning class, so maybe classroom management gets more exciting throughout the day, I'm sure.
Just one class.
Just one. But I will say, one thing that I noticed, you have established the expectations in that class. That was evident by one time you said the expectations of the warm-ups. You were reminding them of the expectations of the warm-ups. And I think
It is a daily reminder.
it's a daily reminder?
It is a daily reminder, yes. Literally every day.
Which I think just maybe it being a daily reminder has set that expectation, and you have reinforced what that expectation is. And I think that is probably one of your strongest parts right now, is because it appears that there's a good, healthy respect in that class, and so they are going to. They know they respect the expectations. They're being reminded of the expectations. I mean, it was very evident. You had the patterns of when you said, all right, let's get out our journals. People had their journals. I think one of the things that I've provided you with one. Again, knowing the caliber of students, that school supplies isn't the highest on their priority list in the organization of them. So how, just a little self-reflection, how are clear behavioral expectations communicated in your classroom? What is something and monitored? What do you kind of do?
It kind of started from the beginning with, the syllabus. I made it clear, these are the expectations, and if you don't follow them, this is what's going to follow. And I've just stuck to that from the beginning. And so it's usually, especially if it's not a kid that's like a repeated behavior problem, it always starts with like a student-teacher conference, either after class. Always after class. I'd never want to talk to a student in front of other kids or take class time out to go talk to them in the hallway. Occasionally I'll do that depending on how bad it's been. And then after that I just let them know, hey, these are the expectations. If you keep this up, this is where it's heading. But then I usually always try to throw in something positive and just say, I believe, you're better than this. I believe, that this isn't you as a person, and this is what I expect. And so, although some of the kids I only want to say negative things to, because that's how they make me feel, I'll always try to throw in something positive and just build that relationship with them. And so even my knuckleheads, we've got a pretty strong relationship, and they'll at least respect me enough that when they know, hey, I'm crossing the line, that they'll start to tone it down. So
Good, and that I think was evident in your class. The respect, like I said, I mean, you could sense the respect of very compliant students. They were,
and there are about 2 or 3 knuckleheads in that class that they can be a pain. So.
And the one that I was in.
Yeah.
And.
Yep.
They either weren't there or they didn't show up.
Well, they were there. They just.
They did not show up.
They're there, yeah.
In the knucklehead form, at least.
Yeah, they did.
Which does, because it's appeared that, and that's probably, on account of you building that relationship for them. They respect you enough, knowing you're being.
And it took a little bit. So first coming in, it was just kind of like, they'd smart off every time I corrected them. And then over time, as I built that relationship, it starts to get better and better. And so I can at least get them to do something for me.
Good.
Most of the time.
I think you've clued into something that is effective teachers. It's not all about what we're instructing up there, but it's really about the relationship.
Right.
And that is half the battle. You build a relationship of respect, and I feel like, and that's what you've done in your classroom.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, I keep a sentence on my board that says, what you do matters, and it's kind of like my class motto, I guess. And so a lot of times, like, if a kid, like, smarts off to me or something, I'll just remind them of that. And, sometimes I feel like I guess it's like the coach side of me, but sometimes I feel like I'm giving them character lessons. Like, we're up there, and we'll talk about life, and we'll talk about stuff, because I feel like that's important. Before I can get them to do the math, they've got to understand, why they should work for me, or, why they should work hard. And so I was telling Skinner that every now and then I feel like a character coach, or, trying to teach them life lessons. But
well, I think we are, because I think ultimately what we teach them in the classroom, what we do matters, is going to carry farther for some students than our academic language. And so I think to a certain degree, there's a quote, I don't remember where I've heard this quote, but they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I'm sure you've heard that. And I think that is so true of students, that we can sit up here and be the best math whiz ever, but unless they know you care for them, that it's never going to sink in, or they're going to do it for the moment and move past it. And so I think you've clued into something that's very important, which led to my next question. I think you just answered this. What do you feel is a relationship between student behavior and student engagement? Because we're going to move into student engagement. So
Right, and so just kind of the same thing. I mean, first off, you know, if their behavior's bad, they're usually not engaged in the lesson to begin with, and so you've got to get them to tune into that and get them to. A lot of my kids, their problem is they just don't care about like anything. You know, I mean,
apathetic.
At all. Like, you know, you could put a 10 in the grade book for every grade, and they're not gonna one care. And if they go to Reach, they're like, oh, I'm out of school. You know, I'm going to Reach, whatever. And so it's getting them to kind of take pride in what they do, like getting them to, hey, start to realize that, you know, what you do and that this matters, you know, like this is, I don't know, it sounds kind of corny, but like you can, no matter where you come from or your background, which a lot of my kids come from a bad background, like it's your decision to make your life what it is. And so I just try to preach that to them, and hopefully they can see that, hey, this math class is important. You know, some of these kids need this math class to graduate. I've got seniors in here who have like 2 math credits, I think, or whatever.
Wow.
And so some of them need it, and it's just trying to tell them, hey, even if you don't need this math class, so a lot of you plan to go into college, like this is preparing you for your TSI, this is preparing you for college algebra. And so I just try to get them to really understand that it's not just a math class, like it's leading on to other things, and everything builds off it. So
Absolutely. And I always tell them decisions we make today don't necessarily, they're not good or bad, they change our opportunities. So doesn't mean if you fail this class that you're going to die.
right,
It's not an end all,
it's nothing in the world.
but it does change the opportunities that you
Right.
have in life. And so sometimes the opportunities aren't as easy. It's not what defines you.
Right,
This is not what defines you. You find, I mean, I have a faith that defines me, and so there's those things, but you find what defines you, that's what
Right.
defines you, but these change opportunities.
right. That's good.
And so I think that's important. And I think that has fallen, I mean, that is very evident, and I think you've, like I said, you've clued into that, and I think that is what's making a bigger impact on those students. So if you could find one area to refine in your lesson, what do you think it would be? I think you've already hit on this.
Well, kind of like what we talked about with the PIMDOS thing, like going in order for the, because I know I was talking about transformations that day, and I didn't necessarily talk about the order because we weren't actually, you know, tangibly or physically like moving the line or moving the quadratic function. So I think it would still help them out, especially when they get to Algebra 2, where they get to, you know, a class where they're going to have to actually move it. That, hey, let me go ahead and let's do it this way. And that way, when you get to that class, you're not going to be confused like, oh, well, Coach Graber said I can do whatever I want.
Right.
You can't. And so I would definitely go back, and, which I did talk about it later on. So
maybe go back and do some, make sure your vertical, what you're teaching, which you didn't teach anything mathematically incorrect in the moment, but just check the vertical
just make sure
alignment
it aligns with what they're doing
for the next
because it's only going to help them. That way, there's no, you know, confusion on their part. And so I feel like I need to do a better job of that and seeing, hey, where is this going? So I know I don't have that confusion.
Because it is very, you're right, it's very easy if we don't think about, okay, what's the next, where is the kid's going to know this? And that's why we have to have, as math teachers, we're supposed to have all of those I mean, all the upper level classes. We go well into college algebra and all these other calc and all these other classes, not because we're going to be teaching them all the time, but because we need to know where it's headed. I think that's important. You also hit on at the very beginning, less teacher directed.
Right.
And that was probably that was kind of the area I always try to find, not, because there was lots of good going on, but we always want to find one thing that we can just refine. I don't mean that it's like low, but it's just one thing that, and I clued into as well, the more teacher directed, especially when it was the second day. Exposure to that content.
Right.
So just, how do you plan, so in working in that, so I saw in the class, I saw very compliant students, and I think that is speaking a little bit to the respect of you and the behavior, so very compliant. So what's it, in your mind, what's the difference between a compliant student and an engaged student?
Well, a lot of kids can be compliant, meaning like you ask them to do something and they'll do it, but an engaged student is